Hi there, so it's 2026 and I'm wanting to try and do a little bit more YouTube this year because I've had this channel for a while, and while I've shared a few short films and little lens reviews and things like that, I've never actually really considered doing the YouTube thing, and it's just a lot of fun, and I've got loads of experience in photography and videography and things like that, so I thought why not just share some tips and things that I've come across in the last few years and so on. So whether it works or not, it's entirely up to you. If you like this sort of content, just let me know and I can crack on and make some more. But I thought tonight I'm going to revisit this guy. This is the Great Joy 50mm, I'm reading it, I know what it is, the 50mm Anamorphic lens, and I've got it in EF mount, and I've already done a review of this on my channel where I looked at how I was using it as a videographer. I've made a few short films with this lens. It's an absolute joy to use, no pun intended, for doing films and things like that, and it's nice to be a kind of a cheap, accessible way to get into anamorphic lenses if you've not used it before. But one thing I wanted to talk about tonight is using it for stills photography, which you never really hear about people doing stills with an anamorphic lens. And when you've got a kind of a mirrorless or a DSLR or something like that, and you've got really fast autofocus primes and stuff like that for really cheap prices and things, why would you want to be using an anamorphic lens, something as big and cumbersome as this, for doing something that you can get away with, a lighter, cheaper lens? I think the thing is that people don't really talk about this sort of lens as a stills lens is crazy, because you can get some absolutely incredible images with this. And I see people trying to recreate the look of films and things like that, just using filters and creative shot designs and shot choices and things like that, and lighting setups and all sorts of stuff. But you never actually really see that many people going out and using kind of a lens that is essentially designed for film. And I think an anamorphic lens is the perfect example of something that is made for film. It's made for video, it's made for motion, it's made for that big wide scope. But if you use that to capture stills, you're going to end up bringing that kind of filmic quality to your stills. And so I've been using it quite a lot since I had the lens. I've actually used it more for stills than I have for videography, which probably surprises some people. But the amount of times that you have times slotted to shooting a film, whereas when it's on your stills camera, you can just pick it up and go whenever you've got a minute, or wherever you see something interesting, you can grab it and think, I'm going to capture this with this lens. It's actually it's been used more by me for stills, really, which is interesting, because I didn't expect it when I bought it for it to be a stills lens at all. In fact, I never even contemplated it. It's obviously tricky because when you're looking at it in camera, there's no anamorphic options preview wise on most DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. They want you to be framing everything in full frame, and they're not expecting any kind of squeezes and things like that in camera. So there's a lot of trial and error where you're taking a photo, and it's actually, you're going to have to kind of visualize what it looks like when you see it back on camera. And there's actually a really nice moment when you copy the stills onto your computer, run them through Lightroom or Photoshop, and you do the desqueeze, and you go from this image that looks a bit warped and it looks nice, but you can't quite figure out what it was like and what it should look like. And then when you apply the desqueeze to it, and you reframe it and stuff like that, and it gets you a little bit, and it's cool. It's a really creative feeling, and it's just a really cool feeling. I think if you haven't done any stills photography and you do have one of these lenses lying around, you should definitely give it a go. I'm just going to put up a selection of photos that I've taken recently. It's been Christmas. We've had a really good time with the family just the last few weeks. We've gone out on lots of walks and things like that. And although this is a big, heavy, cumbersome lens, which I'll get onto in a minute when I'm talking about the positives and negatives, I've taken that a lot with me, and I've forced to have this fixed 50mm, which is, it's quite a wide angle lens on a anamorphic lens. It's another thing to try and get your head around. I've taken out this wide angle, very big, heavy lens with me. I've taken it up 4 meters short of a mountain, believe it or not. I thought it was a mountain at the time, but never mind. And just forced myself to use it and be creative with the shots, and it makes you think in a different way, framing wise and so on. So I've really had this lens on me non-stop for the last few weeks. And so I'm just going to show you now a set of images that I've taken when I've been out and about with the family. Bearing in mind, this is all just natural lighting and things like that. And I haven't really pushed any creative color grading or anything like that. It's kind of as it was from camera. They've all got a nice golden tint to them as well, which again, I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, just enjoy the photos for a minute and then we can discuss the lens. So that was it. Those were just some simple images, just taken out and about with the family, all natural light and everything. And for me, those stills just instantly look a bit more filmic than perhaps if I'd been shooting on a normal, spherical lens. And it just has that kind of nostalgic element to it as well, which I don't know where that comes from. I think it's a combination of just the way that the lens interprets the light and the colors, perhaps. So this lens that I have is actually, you can get a blue tinted lens and you can get an amber tinted lens, which is the one that I went for. A lot of people prefer the blue one because you see that a lot in films. I know J.J. Abrams used that a lot in, basically every one of his films has got lens flares all over the place and they're all that blue color, so that's a popular choice. But I went for this because I figured it was going to be more like low light, sunset kind of golden hour kind of stuff, and I do think that it brings a lot of that to it. So when you're looking at the pictures, they do all have that kind of classic feel, which does give it again a more of a cinematic quality, I think, and less, I would say less cheaper than the blue, because when you have sunsets and stuff, if you have a blue flare, it clashes a little bit for me. It doesn't look as natural, and it also gives a nice nostalgic tint to the images as well. It's very subtle, but it just brings out the golden hues a little bit more, and it's just a really pleasing image to look at. You also get around the edges of the frame, you'll notice a few of those photos, you can see almost the inside of the lens along the bottom and along the top of the image. And to the sides of the frame, you get strange light distortions where I think it's just literally the light bouncing around off the inside of the lens, and you get these crazy colors and stuff, which you might not want them when you're making a film. You might be using lens hoods and things like that to try and block out that from the lens. But with a still, I think you can use that really creatively to give a little bit more heart to the lens, to the image. And I think also, with things becoming more and more digital and analog and AI and things like that coming in, I think to be able to see kind of imperfections, I guess, in a lens is actually quite nice. You can see that, that's a piece of glass or several pieces of glass refracting light, and, it's bouncing around and it's doing things that, no person who's taken the picture could ever aim to get that perfect. You couldn't imagine this. It just sort of happens. A lot of those shots, I've got my families running around in the forest, and they're not very slow children, and you just go on to capture the moment, and as they run past, you click the shutter on it and you think you've got the perfect shot, and then the light's doing something crazy that you didn't even clock when you were taking the image. You didn't even expect that would happen. And I think with an anamorphic lens, you get a lot more of that stuff. The downsides of it, obviously, as I mentioned before, this is heavy. I think this is getting on for about 1 kilogram. It's a good workout just carrying this thing around. You could put one in your backpack and go for a jog if you like, and you'd probably get some extra calories burned. But as far as when it's on the front of your camera's going to be very front heavy. So you'd be holding it like this, and it's very front heavy. You need to kind of support it when you're doing it. I'm also very nervous about it just sitting on the mount, and the mount of the camera taking the weight of this thing. I'm sure it's perfectly fine, but this is a lot heavier than the camera is, and it's very cumbersome. And also, it's pretty fragile. You've got a really big front glass element, and you don't want to damage that. You don't want to knock it. You don't want to get any scratches or anything on it, because being such a wide frame, it's going to see absolutely everything. The other downside I would say potentially is, obviously, if you're shooting stills and you're used to autofocus, this is going to be a completely different ballgame, because you've got an extremely wide focal throw. It's literally, that's focus from infinite. And that's close focus. It's literally about, I think it's 270 degrees. So you're going all the way around. So if you pull in focus quickly, or if you are tracking, a child or a dog, or you want to pull focus quickly from one, foreground to the background, you're going to really struggle with this. You have to take your time with that. The nice thing about it is you do have the apertures built on here. So you've got a nice aperture ring. You can stop that down. You can do nice smooth things if you are using it for video. For stills, it means you can get to an aperture really, really quickly without having to, roll buttons on the camera and things like that. So it has a positive and negative, really, when it comes to the use. I would say that it's definitely designed for video. I'm not trying to convince you that this is a stills lens, although I might put a kind of a title like that in there for some clickbait potentially. Sorry about that. But it's definitely for stills. I think if you've got one, or if you want to, up your stills game and go for something that is more filmic, something more cinematic, something that perhaps tells a little bit more of a story, or you want to capture your person in their environment more, but still have that kind of tight, intimate look. So at the end of the day, this is a 50mm lens. So you're going for a kind of a regular kind of portrait look, kind of like my frame of my YouTube now, but you're getting that extra width. so you can bring in the camera closer and still have a wide angle, if that makes sense. And it's an interesting perspective to play with. And again, when you're looking at it through the lens of the camera, it's warped when you're looking at it, so you're framing things. It's very, very different to just shooting with a spherical lens. So I think if you've got one of these just sitting around in the house and it's just waiting to be used for video, you know, give it some respect, stick it on your camera, take it out, go for a walk, shoot some nature, shoot some portrait stuff, get up close, do some different angles and things like that, and just use the anamorphic effect. I'm not talking about oval bokeh and all this sort of stuff. I'm talking about the frame. Use composition differently to how you would if you're doing a still. Put people on the extreme, put somebody far left, put somebody far right. You know, have objects of interest in different places in the frame as to what you're used to, and just have a play with it and experiment. And obviously, as I've said several times, when you're looking at it in the camera, it's squeezed. It's a strange thing to look at. You've got a real nice experience when you come back to the edit suite and you drop them into Photoshop or you drop them into Lightroom. You do your color adjustments and then you just go, and it goes into the correct ratio and it looks great, and it just brings the image back and you're like, ah, right, I get it. I like that. That's a good one. Or that one was crap. But it's a cool experience, and it's another step as part of the creative process that I've found that I really, really enjoy. And I think if you're a stills photographer, if you're a filmmaker, it's worth having a look, and it's worth experiencing that. It's cool. What about you? Have you shot with anamorphic lenses before? Have you just used them for video, or have you picked them up and put them on your stills camera before? I'd genuinely love to see some of your images or to hear your experiences using these sort of things. I've been on YouTube for a while and I've never really used it, so my aim this year is really to just try and get out there and just share some of my experiences, share my insights, talk about gadgets, talk about gear, talk about films, filmmaking, and just general life of being a kind of a self-employed filmmaker in the UK and what that's like, and just hear some of your stories as well. So if you want to be here for that sort of thing and you're interested in that sort of content, then please do subscribe. It's going to help me massively, and it's going to let me make more of this sort of stuff. And yeah, thanks very much for your support, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.